Welcome back to the channel, folks, where today we look at another plant in the 50 Flowers in 50 Days series in this bumper summer of 2025. Today, the plant that we are looking at is a plant of field margins and meadows known as field scabious or gypsy rose, otherwise known in Latin as Knautia Arvensis. Field scabious has a lilac pink purple flower head and is a member of the family Caprifolaceae, otherwise known as the Honeysuckle Family. Field scabious, like its counterpart, greater knapweed, is an abundant source of nectar and pollen for insect feeders throughout the summer. Field scabious accommodates a wide ecology of bees, butterflies, beetles and bugs. In these static images of the flower, we see the outer larger petals serving as a landing pad, and towards the centre we see a dense aggregation of florets, each consisting of 4 corolla. In the case of the confusion species, small scabious, the florets are composed of 5 corolla. The flowers are protandrous, meaning the stamens come before the styles. They are 2 to 4 stamens per floret, with pink or blue anthers. The styles are white and slender, with simple or 2-lobe stigmas. To the rear of the flower head or capitulum, we have 2 rows of alternating bracts with a thinner row of sepals at the back. The stem of this plant is tough, hairy and rigid, with the hairs pointing downwards towards the ground to deter climbing insects. As can be seen, field scabious and greater knapweed make a formidable meadow mix for foraging insects. The globular seed head may be best described as a fringed gourd derived from each individual's floret, surrounded by the 10 floret sepals, as can be seen in this slide. Field scabious is known by a number of common or vernacular names, namely gypsy rose, lady's cushion, Egyptian rose, clodwig or black soap. It's also known as bachelor's buttons, black Moor's beauty, pins and needles, snake flower and curled doddy, i.e. a curly head. The Latin binomial is generally straightforward, with the prefix Knautia derived from the German botanist Christian Naut. The suffix Arvensis generally means pertaining to the field or meadow. The habitat of field scabious is best described as field margins and meadows, as well as roadsides, and it is particularly abundant where there is a chalk bedrock. Therefore, the habitat of field scabious is meadows, grassland dry soils, roadsides and field margins. The plant has its own specific bee, known as the scabious bee or Adrena hatorfiana. In today's episode, we are going to visit a small linear urban nature reserve consisting of a small pond, woodland, heathland and a meadow wildflower area. So folks, let's get started and take a closer look. Greetings folks, welcome to another plant in the 50 Flowers in 50 Days series. And we've returned to an urban nature reserve which we visited before, known as Railway Terrace, which you no doubt will hear when the train interrupts us. We have come here today in this habitat which we've described before, which consists of a meadow, a linear woodland extending back, and also a small amount of heathland extending back parallel. And at the end of the reserve there's also a small freshwater pond So it's a very compact little reserve with a variety of habitats. And in today's episode, we're in the meadow portion of the nature reserve, and we've come expressly to look at 3 plants if we can find them. We've already found 2, which is the muskmallow and this one here, which is what we're going to look at in this episode, which is known as the field scabious. And here we have the plant. As you can see, it's been absolutely chocker all morning with bees and hoverflies, so therefore it is one of those plants that is welcome in the garden or indeed in a wildlife area for feeding pollinators on pollen and nectar. Just a quick look at the plant. It has a variety of basal leaf shapes, which I don't know if you can see, and these are hairy to the touch. It's pinnately, coarsely lobed there. These are the basal leaves. Some of the leaves are actually, if you have a look at them, just simple spear-like leaves with a stalk. So these are the basal leaves. As we move upward on the stem, they become finely divided into smaller little leaves as we move towards the top of the plant. The plant itself, you can see, is a purple to lilac flower, and you would be forgiven at a distance at glancing at this and confusing it with meadow thistle, Knautia Arvensis. However, as we've been describing, the leaves differ. There are no spines or spikes, and the flower disc is a little larger, as you can see, with the raised stamens and styles towards the centre, making it appear paler, and the florets to the edge of the flower purpler. So it almost has a white-like paler centre and darker mauve florets towards the edge. And this is an excellent plant for pollinators, as I've said, and it has very distinctive star-like sepals underneath the capitulum. So that basically is the plant of today. The habitat that we're finding it in is grassland. The flower stands are visited by a selection of meadow butterflies, including this displaying male gatekeeper butterfly. So, before we embark on our journey into the field, we look at the features and characteristics which will enable us to identify it and find it in the field, commencing with the flower structure. As pointed out, field scabious is a member of the family Caprifolaceae, or the honeysuckle family. It is a perennial stroke biennial, growing 25 to 100 centimetres or 1 to 3 foot in height. The flowers are bluish, lilac or mauve, and the central florets have corollas which are 4-lobed, as opposed to the small scabious, which is 5-lobed florets, helping to differentiate the confusion species. The flower disc is approximately 3 centimetres in diameter and paler in its centre where the florets are located. It is a lilac, pink or purple colour, and there are 2 to 4 stamens per floret with pink or blue anthers. The styles are white and slender with simple or 2-lobed stigmas. The flowers themselves are protandrous, meaning the stamens flower before the styles. Field scabious may be seen flowering between July and September. Okay folks, today we've come to look at another in the 50 Flowers in 50 Day series, and it is a blustery, windy day, so I do apologise for any wind noise that the microphone has picked up. At first glance, you might be forgiven if you mistake this pale lilac blue flower to be a member of the family Asteraceae, but you would be wrong, because the plant is in the family Caprifolaceae, or Honeysuckle Family. And the plant that we are looking at today is known as field Scabious, or Gypsy Rose, as it's sometimes known as. And its Latin name is Knautia Arvensis, after the German botanist Christian Knautia, who named it. Now, the plant is between 25 and 100 centimetres in height, and its preferred habitat is on damp, well-drained grassland at the periphery of Meadow. And sure enough, as coincidence would have it, we're in a local nature reserve on the edge of the meadow behind me. So let's have a quick field appraisal of the plant itself. The plant is called field Scabious because traditionally, in times gone by, it was used to treat scabies, and in particular in the Middle Ages it was used to treat the wounds of bubonic plague. So let's do a quick stem to flower overview of the plant in the field. The leaves at the base of the plant consist of a basal rosette with paired opposite leaves moving up the stem. As you can see, it branches into three and has three, or should have three, inflorescences, and the stem is hairy with the hairs pointing downwards. Turning to the flower, which I've said is a pale lilac blue colour, and you can tell that we are in Railway Terrace at the moment because we've just had a train pass. But the flower itself can be readily confused with one other, which is known as the small scabious. On the flower head, it consists of 4 corolla, but in the small scabious it has 5 corolla. And the overall structure of the inflorescence is it contains small florets scattered across the plant capitulum. And as I say, in field scabious it has 4 corolla, and in small scabious it has 5. So that is the structure of the plant flower. It contains 4 stamens and 1 notched divided stigma. The plant itself is very, very good as a pollinator, and it's on the same rating as the common knapweed directly behind me, which, as you'll see, is darker blue. And these two plants make it very, very useful for the insect pollinators. And both these plants, both the knapweed and the field scabious, are pretty much busy all the time with various pollinators moving to and fro. So that's a very brief head to toe of the plant. Just to recap the habitat, it's a grassland plant, and we're right on the edge of a meadow next to the heathland behind me, exactly where you'd expect to find this plant on damp, well-drained soils in grassland. So folks, let us allow the beauty of the flower to speak for itself. Well folks, that's it from me, and it brings this episode of our Meadow Hero to an end. I hope you can join me on the next in the series, where we will look at another plant in the 50 Flowers in 50 Days series. If you have liked or enjoyed this video, or found it interesting or educational, please like, share and subscribe to help this channel continue. All that remains to be said, in the words of Maggie, our international symbol of floral beauty, is whatever the weather may be, go outdoors and enjoy it.